So, permeability, what is the unit? Some weird unit. There you go, Webers per amp turn meter. It's a mathematical unit. They didn't get anybody's name on there, you know. So it should have been, I don't know. Who's famous in history that we throw on there?
How Bennett.
Schumacher.
So we could call it permeability the Bennett. The unit, the Bennett unit, you know, because it's got a weird number. Like no one wants that. They'll just rename it. That's how they do it. Like they did with Webers per square meter. They call them a Tesla. Anyway.
Is that question really test?
Always concerned with what's going to be on the test.
That's all we care about.
You should be concerned with making a good career and understanding all these things so that you can be a better electrician.
Will we use this?
So you don't have to give us a test then?
I'm forced, you know,
No,
I
right.
really don't want to.
Every force
Okay, so
Electrical
define for
jokes.
me, without looking at your book, inductance.
In the test of Bennett. I don't think he realized that.
Property of an electric circuit, good. Someone else to finish? No, we already established the property, inductance.
Like opinion.
Opposes something?
Opposition to change.
Opposes,
Any change in current.
change in current.
Yeah.
Doesn't oppose current.
No.
No.
Let's say no. Okay, let's say no. It opposes a change in current, right? It allows current, once there's no change, there's no opposition. That's why you need that resistor. Anyway, but when it's DC. As long as there's a change in current, then there's going to be opposition. And so the current's going this way, says no. Current goes this way, no. It's like it just wants to continually oppose whatever direction the current is going. So that's the property of the circuit that does that. Is it happening?
No.
There's a coil. Is it happening?
No.
Is anything happening to this?
No.
I'm waiting, right? No, it's the property of that circuit to do that when you apply a current through the coil. Okay, so if you change the current through the coil, now that's called a
Sounds like a PR.
process.
Oh.
Now that's called electromagnetic induction.
Induction.
Got it.
Scare myself.
So electromagnetic induction, go back to the beginning of learning task 6.
No, no French.
You have to learn French? Was that no?
Well, the result is a voltage, induced voltage. That's the result. That's the driving finger. That's the result. The result when the guy cut you off, right? So when they cut the flux, when they cut you off, the result is you induce a voltage. It's a driving finger. Okay, so it doesn't always happen. You know, some people are nicer than others. You know, but if you've got a lot of inductance,
Ron has a rough past.
right? How do you remember things like that? Anyways, so the result is that's the process of generating a voltage by cutting a magnetic field with a conductor. That's pretty much it. So you can remember that for the quiz.
Oh, wait, remember what?
Oh.
And we already did Lenz's law that the change in current is opposed. So that's good. Henry, it has 1 Henry when 1 amp produces 1 total flux linkage change.
Is that important to know or no?
You know what? I'd say that it's more mathematical than anything. But here's the one here. An inductance of 1 Henry when a changing current of the rate of 1 amp per second, which is basically acceleration, right? It's like Coulomb per second per second. It's already going at a rate, and you're increasing increasing that rate. So an amp per second is an acceleration of a flow, right? And you induce a voltage of 1 volt into the circuit. So they call that a Henry. And here it is here. Here's the one we're working with. Okay, so you guys did the self-test?
No doubt.
Okay. So if I throw a different inductor in, this L here is that. It's based on the property that the circuit of inductance in the circuit, based on how many turns does it have, what's the permeability, length of the core, cross-sectional area. So it's built, however it's built, and what it's made of is the L. That's unchangeable unless you physically change it to a different inductor. So that's the L in the circuit. That's the inductance in the circuit, which is this guy over here, n squared mu A over L. Okay, that's the property that doesn't do anything unless you do something to it. Well, this process of induction is a counter EMF. So these, counter EMF and induced voltage, are really the same thing, only it's happening in the circuit, and Lenz's law says that it opposes the change. So, I just erase it with that. So that's a negative, because it's opposing the current that caused it. So there's the negative. So we got L, we got a negative. What's this delta I over delta T?
Changing.
Rate of change of current. So how fast is that current changing is really how much induced voltage we'll be trying to stop it. That's what's going to happen. And the faster that change, the bigger this voltage will be to try to stop it. And the slower that is, we'll only get a little bit of voltage trying to stop it. That's pretty much, in a nutshell, what that means. So we'll go down to that one. And they call it negative Li over T, whatever. So times in seconds, E's in volts, inductance is in henries, and I over T is the average rate of change in current. Okay, so what if I had a rate of change from 5 amps to 10 amps in half a second? And the inductance is 1 Henry of the coil. Let's say we already figured out that it was 1 Henry because we calculated the terms and the permeability and whatever. Or we read what it said on the inductor and it said 1 Henry.
Negative 10 volts.
Negative 10 volts. Okay, so how do you do that? Change in time. So let's look at change in time. That's right there, right? So delta T is positive 5 seconds. So that's the change in time. That's not a divide. Okay, 5 amps to 10 amps. Well, you're going to do the new amps minus the old amps. So new I minus old I is 10 minus 5. So I end up getting a positive number. What if it went from 5 amps to 10 amps, or sorry, 10 amps to 5 amps? Then it would be 5 minus 10, and we get a negative number. Okay, so we'll do that next. 10 amps minus 5 amps is positive 5 amps. It changed by going up 5 amps. It didn't go down 5 amps. Okay? And we say, okay, 1 Henry. So we say 1 Henry, so the counter EMF, or just E if you like, equals negative 1 Henry, sorry, I'm in your way, negative 1 Henry over positive 5 amps over positive 0.5 seconds. Doing that on purpose, force the polarity. And 5 divided by 0.5 is 10. And we're going to call it, that's a Henry amp per second. So what's a Henry amp per second? That's just a plain old volt. So without, what's that?
Wouldn't it be negative 10?
It'd actually be positive.
What?
Is it? Oh, wait a minute. Negative, I'm sorry.
Oh my
Liar.
Positive 10 in
Nearly threw me
here,
for a circle there.
and that's why I left the negative in there. You're right, negative 10 volts.
Cold, please.
We're testing it.
Nearly threw me for a loop. I was like, oh, this could be bad.
Is this gonna be negative?
With half mark?
It's gonna be negative if it works out to be negative.
Tricky.
Okay, let's do another one.
Yeah.
There you go. Need you to do this. Okay, so countering F, okay. So let's say we went from 10 amps to 5 amps. In an eighth of a second.
Ooh.
What? Fractions. Fractions? What?
That's okay.
Oh, what?
Okay, and we have a inductor with 100 millihenries.
Oh, it's the belly.
Minute.
How to convert to Henry?
Why is it
So, what's my formula?
Minus 1.
100.
God, I hope that's right.
Rate of change of current times the inductance, and negative because it counters it. So change in time, let's put some values in here. So now that's what I'm given, so change in time. What do I put for change in time?
It's 1.8.
Point 125.
You
Yeah.
you should know your 8.125, right? 0.375. Okay. 10 amps to 5 amps. So the change in current is 5 amps new minus 10 amps old equals negative 5 amps. So it changed, it went down, right? It went down 5 if you want to think of it that way. Don't forget the negative.
It should be 4,000.
And then we say, okay, just got to plug it in. So we take those and this becomes 0.1 of a Henry,
Milli.
right?
Milli
And we're plugging all those numbers in here equals
Yeah.
negative 0.1.
400. Yeah. But I
One on
did
there,
Miller.
so it doesn't look like anything else. And then change in current,
Henry.
negative 5 over 0.125 seconds. It happened faster, but it's a less inductive coil. Because we use only a 100 millihenry coil. But it happened quicker. This one was in half a second, this is in an eighth of a second. So it's quicker. So think about that. The current decreased quicker than it went up in the other case, right?
Oh, okay.
Half a second, 1,000, right? Or eighth of a second, like, right? So
What is it when you say the current was
I got that.
it changed.
Changed.
Changed. Change in current. Delta is a change in current. Okay, so this would be, sorry guys, I don't know what that is. What is that?
4.
Yeah, because 8 times 5 is 40, times 0.1 is 4. So it'd be positive 4 volts.
Ooh, that changes things now. I didn't see that. Well, that's how you. Yeah, actually,
Got it? Positive 4?
negative Henry.
Yeah.
Very good. So that's why I did this example. So when the current goes down, what's happening in the circuit? Well, here you go. So this is 100 millihenries of a coil, right? I don't know, whatever it was, so let's say this resistor was limiting it, and it went from, and we changed, whatever this is, I don't care, the ammeter was there. So on the ammeter, first we were reading 10, but went from 10 amps to 5 amps. So it was reading 10 and then it went down to 5, but it happened really quick. happen in 1/8 of a second. So if you have, let's say we had 120 volts. And so even DC would work in this case, so it doesn't matter, source. Just put a source. So if I have a voltage rise of 120, voltage rise, I'm at 120 volt level, and then down here I'm at 0, so I got a negative 120 and 0. What's going to happen is as soon as that current changes, it's going to kick back 4 volts when it increases. When it decreases, when the current decreases, it's going to help, it's going to aid the voltage in causing that current. It wants to keep that current going, right? I don't know if you remember the thing in level 1 electronics, they used a freewheeling diode. And it was a similar thing. We put a diode there, across there. We did it positive, we did it reverse biased, right? Yeah. And the reason why you do that is so that it doesn't normally flow there. But what happens is this inductor, when the current's dropping, when you're turning it off with your main switch, what it does is it actually is doing this. It's countering the change. The change wants to drop, so it tries to keep it going. And so what it does is it becomes a source. It becomes a negative there. It becomes like a source. Is it a source?
No.
Well, sort of. Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It is.
Yes, good. Because you're inducing a voltage. And Faraday's law says you're inducing a voltage because you're cutting flux lines with a conductor. Right? And that's really what's happening. Or the current is changing and dropping, meaning the flux lines are moving through the conductor. So you're generating a voltage. And depending on which way the current is going, up or down, it's going to oppose the change. Lenz's law says it opposes the change. So if you remember anything, just say if the current's dropping, it's going to be a positive voltage. If the current's increasing, it's going to be a negative count. It's going to always counter the effect that it's trying to do. It's going to oppose the change.
If that was DC, would the 4 volts always go against it?
No.
No?
Only when it's changing. Yeah. So anyway, it's not putting the full voltage against it because it's only changing a little bit, going from 5 amps to 10 amps. Anyway, I think that sort of you can understand that now. Is that?
Yeah, if you don't put that diode and stuff blows up, right?
Well, you only do this because you have a switch here that's going to arc and spark, and it's going to cause that current to go through your switch contacts and burn up your contacts. So you just throw that in there to absorb to reroute the current through the resistance of these windings in here. Those will also have some resistance in them and dissipates the heat. Because, I don't know, that's a very thin wire, a very long distance, must have some resistance, right? This one? What do you think the resistance of that is? What do you think the resistance of that is? I don't have the meter here actually.
8.
7.
Yeah, it's okay. It's probably going to be 12 ohms or something.
Do you know?
I don't know.
All the numbers.
Okay, learning task 7. These guys love this.
That was 6.
A lot to cover, actually. Here we get to a theoretical inductor. I don't really like their convention of having the positive on the top, right? Because I like the electrons to go clockwise, but in this case they're going to go counterclockwise. But anyway, whatever. Left brain, right?